Hi, folks. While we're going through Jeremy Dewitte withdrawals, I finally found the time to make this video, which I've been sitting on since at least January? I think it's been a while. And just like most of my Jeremy Dewitte videos, it does start with a real-world police video, which contains the following clip.
Okay, but do you think with the siren, the tone, the lights, and the way you're dressed, do you think that somebody could confuse that with somebody as a law enforcement officer?
No, because it says funeral escorts.
But do his vehicles actually say that? No, they don't. With the exception of, I believe, one vehicle, but that decal edition is recent. We can clearly see in videos Jeremy has posted that his vehicles say Vehicle Protection Unit, which doesn't in any way indicate that they are a funeral escort company. In fact, it makes me think that they are a security company. Actually, in my very first video on Metro State, I called them a civilian security company because that's what they advertised themselves as, and I honestly believe they were. On their website, they claim to provide safe and secure transportation to executives, groups, and families while providing the highest level of protection. They also appear to provide protection from domestic terrorism and violence for VIPs and celebrities. These two claims are advertised as separate services from funeral escorts, which is what their company actually does. You wouldn't know that from looking at them, though, because they dress like police officers and drive police-type vehicles with labels meant to confuse people. In fact, when Jeremy is asked if he is a police officer, he won't say no. Instead, he chooses to call himself a state-certified agent, which is one of the reasons he's in jail right now. Well, actually, the reason he's in jail right now is because of a dating violence incident that we've talked about, which revoked all of his bonds for all of his other nonsense. That's what this video is about, though. Wow. Now, Jeremy isn't technically allowed to protect a funeral escort. He can only facilitate its movement. And he has claimed that all of the gear which would be useful for protecting the escort is actually worn to convince people not to mess with the procession. In the military, we call this presenting a hard target, something he may have learned about while researching the military in order to pretend he was in it. Folks, he was never in the military, as many of you are aware. This claim that it's all for show doesn't do much to dissuade the idea that he is trying to convince people he's a security guard or police officer. It also raises a few questions, such as why would someone put handcuffs in a handcuff pouch when it looks the same when empty, unless, of course, there was an intent to use them? Doesn't really make sense, does it? It turns out I'm not the only person who thought he was a security guard. I did a lot of digging into the various pockets of Orange County, and I came across something very interesting. There are investigations into Jeremy Dewitte that appear to establish he may be charged with impersonating a security officer, which actually falls under the same statute as impersonating a police officer, and which is something he's legally prohibited from obtaining a license to be due to his felony convictions. But those charges haven't been officially filed. Now, my best guess is that these are contingency cases. Basically, if Jeremy gets a plea deal encompassing everything he's been charged with in the Orange County Sheriff's Office, isn't happy with the end result, they can then file these charges for other crimes to ensure Jeremy's punishment is, in their eyes, more sufficient. Or perhaps they're worried about losing the case against Jeremy and they can hold on to these until the process is over, then file them without worrying about double jeopardy. Now, these are just guesses, but definite possibilities. Let's actually go over some of the statements that I found in this investigation. While investigating the Metro State Special Services Vehicle Protection Unit LLC, Metro State, I made contact with Nicole Anglem, the day manager of Woodlawn Cemetery. During my interview with Nicole, she stated that not only does she use Metro State for funeral escorts, but she also utilizes their security services. When I informed her that Metro State was not a security company, Nicole was in awe. She replied that when they perform the security services for her business, they wear uniforms that represent a security officer. She proceeded to tell me their uniforms had badges and they wore gun belts with guns. Nicole further stated they appeared to look like me, law enforcement, as I was dressed in my agency motor uniform during my interactions with her. Nicole further stated Woodlawn Cemetery pays Metro State for both services as a third-party contractor, and none of the employees for Metro State are employees of Woodlawn Cemetery. Confirming Anglem's statement, an invoice dated 11/01/17 for Metro State Special Services to 400 Woodlawn Cemetery Road, etc., shows a payment of $225 owed for one officer for a protection service for 9 hours. On 11/11/19 at 10:45 hours, I made contact with Connie Degarolamo Carlson, that's a mouthful, general manager of the Baldwin Fairchild at Chapel Hill, in reference to the security services provided by Jeremy Dewitte through his company, Metro State Special Services / Vehicle Protection Unit, LLC, Metro State. Connie stated she utilizes Dewitte's security services along with his escort services. Connie further said she was led to believe by Dewitte that he was a licensed security company and had all the appropriate licenses and insurances for security services. Connie stated she utilized Dewitte's security services 3 times in 2019. July 13th for the funeral of Michelle Ennis when Connie was expecting trouble due to the fact the death of Ennis, was related to a shooting. How very interesting. October 31st for security protection around the cemetery due to Halloween. That makes sense. And again on November 1st, also for security protection of the cemetery due to Halloween. Connie provided me with 2 checks payable to J. Dewitte. Check number whatever, date number whatever, check number whatever, date number whatever. Connie further stated Baldwin Fairchild Funeral Home pays Metro State for both escort and security services as a third-party contractor, and none of the employees for Metro State are employees of Baldwin Fairchild Funeral Home. And finally, the third one. On 10/10/19, I received information from Sandra St. Amand of the Pax Villa Funeral Home located at, the address isn't important, in reference to Metro State conducting security services for funeral viewings. Sandra stated she pays Jeremy Dewitte, the owner/operator of Metro State, $75 for 3 hours of security services, in which he supplies a security officer for vehicle protection in the parking lot. Sandra indicated that she frequently uses Jeremy's security services for large viewings, along with his escort services. Sandra stated she has hired his security services for vehicle protection in the parking lot on 10/11/19 at 1700 hours and 10/12/19 at 0900 hours. Sandra verbally stated she has her own employees parking vehicles, and Metro State was hired for vehicle protection only. Sandra further stated Pax Villa Funeral Home pays Metro State for both escort and security services as a third-party contractor, and none of the employees for Metro State are employees of Pax Villa Funeral Home. Interesting. Well, he's definitely not allowed to be armed security doing that. But there is an exemption within the law that allows someone to work unarmed security at a physical place of worship without a license. And yes, that does include cemeteries. Additionally, you'll notice that each statement included the fact that Dewitte was a contractor and not an employee. Now, why was that included? It's likely because the religious exemption applies to people employed by the religious organization. So it seems likely Orange County was preparing for the argument that Dewitte wasn't technically employed because he wasn't technically an employee. I suspect it isn't that big of a deal because a different part of the exemptions requires exclusive employment for unarmed security at a business if the security officer does not possess a license. And since the religious exemption doesn't mention exclusive employment, it seems very possible that exclusive employment isn't required. Now, this is something that I would have to dig through case law to resolve, but I'm going to leave that to Orange County to figure out. Regardless, those statements make it clear that the people hiring Metro State believed the company was a licensed security company. There is a little wiggle room here for Jeremy, but I don't even have to have that discussion because those aren't the only instances of Jeremy being hired to act as security. If we go back to his website, he says that his company conducts charity rides, which he has confirmed verbally.
We were coming up to the month of October, which is breast cancer awareness. We do a lot of charity events for that.
And that's fine, as long as they're obeying traffic laws without the use of horns, sirens, or colored lights. You see, if it's not a funeral procession, Jeremy can't hold red lights or activate his ambers and purples. But he did. And this time, I have more than a police report to prove it. I have video. This first event appears to be run by the Iron Pigs, and it's a really neat event that benefits the local Nemours Children's Hospital. But this isn't a funeral procession, so why is Metro State using their lights and holding intersections? What statute covers that, Jeremy? The second video is a charity event run by the Shadow Warrior Riders, a motorcycle club apparently run by our good friend and former contractor of Jeremy Dewitte, Chance Showell. Now, Chance got real mad at me last time I posted his face, name, and video of him paying Jeremy Dewitte for committing a crime on the grounds that I was compromising his semi-covert status within the Department of Homeland Security, despite the fact that all the information I provided was from his public LinkedIn profile and public Facebook page. Chance, I've been semi-covert. I know how it works. If you're semi-covert, you aren't doing it right. So you might want to take down the badge behind you when doing your public live streams on Facebook, in which both your face and name are clearly displayed. Just a thought, just from one guy to another. You'd think that, being as close to retirement as you are, you would know this by now. And, this guy who just sits at a desk and makes YouTube videos wouldn't have to call you out on this, but here we are. We emailed each other back and forth, Chance and I. I asked questions, and he told me he couldn't tell me anything, and then, told me anyway. For example, although the Orange County Sheriff's Office had told him he couldn't hire Dewitte, the decision to employ him as security for charity rides was made by a council vote, which Chance supposedly had no control over. But here's my problem with that. Chance, you knew there were issues between Dewitte and local law enforcement, so did you not make sure the council knew this before the decision was made? Did you do your due diligence and look into that? Judging by the fact that you told me you believed he was not only a security company, but also a combat veteran, and the fact that Dewitte was handed the money by you on camera, at which time you not only called him a stud and stated you would write a character witness statement for him, it makes me think that no, you didn't. Oh, I love that bit. He's going to be so mad at me. Shit-eating grin right here. There are a lot of things that Chance has said that I don't believe, but that's not the focus of this video. The focus of this video is this. Jeremy, you accepted money to work as security. You were caught on camera working as security, even though you've admitted you're not security.
We don't do security at all. They would give us the chance. And because we're not a security company, the other company is because that's what we do. We don't do security. We do funeral escorts.
I hope Amir is the best attorney in the world, because this one's going to be tough to beat, just like most of your other charges. I hope you guys enjoyed this update on Jeremy while he sits in jail. So until next time, be good, stay safe.